Hello and welcome to this episode of Naked Truth. In this episode, we are continuing our series, The Biblical Origins of the Genocide in Gaza. Now, in this episode, we consider how the quest for Greater Israel, or what is called Erez Israel, fuels the situation of the genocide in Gaza and Palestine in general. The quest for Greater Israel. Now, a good place to start will be to go back to the alleged promise of the land of Canaan, or the land of Palestine, to the people of Israel. And this we can find in Genesis 15, verses 18 to 20. It says, "At that time, Yahweh made a promise to Abram. He said, I will give this land to your descendants. This is the land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates. It is the land of the Canaanites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, and the Jebusites." Exodus 3 verse 18 contains a similar promise. Yahweh says to Moses, "So I have come down to rescue you, your people, from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, Girgashites, and so on." Exodus 23:31 goes on to say, "I will," this is Yahweh saying to Moses, "I will establish your borders, the borders of the land of ancient Israel, from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. I will give into your hands the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you." So this is the template that is still being followed. I will give you the land belonging to other people, and you will drive them out of that land, and it becomes your inheritance. Exodus 3 verse 17, Numbers 34 1-2 contain these promises as well. So in light of this promise, or so-called promise, the Zionist movement, this is a movement formed in the 19th century, late 19th century, in Europe, especially Eastern Europe, as a nationalist movement of Jewish people with the aim of forcing the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine, the ancient homeland, as they say it, of the Jewish people. And they refer to this as Erez Israel, the land of Israel. Now remember, at this time, in the last video we saw how over centuries and millennia, the people of ancient Israel, according to the Bible, were driven out of the land, and historically it's established that people of Israel were exported en masse from the land where they occupied and dispersed them in different places, especially in Europe and America. Now, so this Zionist movement has the goal of bringing back the dispersed Israelites back to the homeland of Palestine. Now, the extent of this homeland depends on the strand of Zionism you ask. For the liberals amongst them, the Israel created in 1948 within the areas and borders designated by the UN, and in which area they would live alongside Palestinian people, was sufficient. So for them, that marked return to the Promised Land. However, for more conservative Zionists, the state of Israel should not stop at the borders or boundaries established by the United Nations in 1948, but that it should go far beyond that, encompassing the present-day Israel and Palestine, and even beyond that. However, the creation of Israel in 1948 by the UN envisaged the existence of two independent states in the land of Canaan, or the land called Palestine today. A state of Palestine on one hand, and the state of Israel on the other hand. If you go to Article 3 of UN General Assembly Resolution 181 of 1947, it makes it clear. It says that it should be created, or there should be created, an independent Arab and Jewish states, and the special international regime for the city of Jerusalem, set forth in Part 3 of this plan. And they shall come into existence in Palestine 2 months after the evacuation of the armed forces of the mandatory power, that is Britain. So, as at 1947, it says there should be 2 states, Israel, Palestine, living side by side. The boundaries of the Arab state, it continues to say, and the Jewish state, and the city of Jerusalem shall be as described in parts 2 and 3 below. So that resolution set out the boundaries, and look at the boundaries. Now, since that resolution on a 2-state solution in 1947 and the declaration of the Jewish state, which followed shortly afterwards in May 1948, a Palestinian state is yet to emerge. Despite numerous UN General Assembly resolutions affirming the right of Palestinians to self-determination and statehood, and the recognition of the Palestinian state by at least 139 members of the UN. So the 2-state solution, one came up in 1948, shortly after the passage of the resolution. The second one, because at that point, Britain, the mandatory power, did not do what they're supposed to do to facilitate the emergence of Palestinian states. And the UN didn't do much either to make it happen. Since then, there have been many resolutions for the recognition of a Palestinian state by the UN at the Security Council. But many of these have been vetoed by the United States of America. Many governments of Israel in succession have opposed the emergence of a Palestinian state. and consistently vote against the full membership of Palestine in the United Nations. So, as a matter of fact, the current Prime Minister of Israel and the longest serving Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said on the 21st of January 2024 on Twitter or X, and I quote, "I will not compromise on full Israeli security control over all the territory west of Jordan." That is to say, over the territory of Palestine. And this is contrary to a Palestinian state. If we agree to this, if we agree to sovereignty for Palestine, our soldiers fell in vain. If we agree to this, we will not be able to guarantee the security of our citizens. So he was saying, in effect, that Israel must maintain control of Palestine for its own security and the security of its own citizens. And therefore, the emergence of a Palestinian state is inconsistent with the security of Israel. Remember, it's not for him to say. The United Nations that created Israel says you are to exist alongside a Palestinian state. It's not for Israel to say if Palestine should exist or not. In July 2024, the Parliament of Israel went ahead to vote overwhelmingly to reject the two-state solution on the ground that a Palestinian state will pose an existential danger to the state of Israel and its citizens, perpetuate the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and destabilize the region. I'll give you references to these passages at the end of the video. So, the Parliament of Israel, the Prime Minister of Israel, not just the current Prime Minister, successive Prime Ministers, most of them, say that the existence of a Palestinian state will be inconsistent with the security of Israel. This means that Israel has officially abandoned the two-state solution on the basis of which it was created by the UN. As a matter of fact, today much of the land on which a Palestinian state would exist are now part of Israel. And settlements of Israeli people are scattered all through Palestine, making it very difficult, if not impossible, for a viable Palestinian state to emerge. In fact, it is arguable whether the UN genuinely wanted a Palestinian state to emerge, given the boundary or given the map of the area and the way they divided the land in a very awkward manner between Israel and Palestine. Okay, so consistently with the belief that a Palestinian state will be inconsistent with the security of Israel, successive governments of Israel, in furtherance of the Greater Israel Project, have annexed territories that were supposed to be Palestinian territory or part of the Palestinian state, especially the West Bank. The West Bank was part of the Palestinian state alongside Gaza Strip. They've also annexed part of Syria, the Golan Heights, and they are still there till today. And today, they've taken more of Syria as well, and they're heading towards Damascus. They have also taken or occupied parts of southern Lebanon. In fact, on the 22nd of September 2023, the Prime Minister of Israel presented to the United General Assembly, of all places, a map he called the map of the New Middle East. This map reflected the vision of Greater Israel and does not include Palestine. So essentially, he wiped out Palestine out of the map, out of the face of the earth. So for the people of Israel and the government of Israel, when I say people, not all of them, but most of them, there are some who oppose, but the government of Israel and the supporters and many of the Zionist people believe that Greater Israel, the Eretz Israel, should encompass all the territories promised to the ancient Israelites in the Bible, from River Nile to the Euphrates. And this position was made clear recently by the current finance minister of Israel, Mr. Bezalel Smotrich, in October 2024. He denied the existence of any Palestinian people and said that Jerusalem would extend, i.e., that Israel would extend to Damascus, the current capital, or the capital of Syria. Now, so this belief in Greater Israel says that the territory of Israel, the Greater Israel, will cover the entirety of Palestine, West Bank, Gaza, everything. Jordan, the country of Jordan, portions of Syria. They have the Golan Heights at the moment since 1967, and now they've occupied more parts of it. Parts of Egypt, parts of southern Lebanon, parts of Turkey, parts of Iraq, parts of Kuwait, and parts of Saudi Arabia. This is the vision of Greater Israel. So what can we make of this? Well, first, scriptures of religion, whether it is Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, whatever religion, cannot provide a valid or legal basis for the acquisition or ownership of any land. Because scriptures of religions vary. The scripture of your religion is not the scripture of my religion or that of other people. And what they said or they promised to you in your scripture has no validity or connection to other people's lives or religions. So whatever is in the Torah has no bearing on legality, has nothing to do with the people who own a land. Second, the acquisition of territory by conquest, which is what the Bible account actually was, that some people came and they overpowered others and took their land. That is conquest. Whereas this method of acquiring land was valid thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, under international law. This is not the case. It is no longer an acceptable or legal way to acquire territory. You cannot, because you have more force or more power, overpower other people and take over their land. Otherwise, stronger nations will be free to go anywhere as they did in the past and simply conquer the people, and they will claim, all right, God told us to do so. Third, the present state of Israel was not a creation of the God of Israel. It was a creation of the United Nations at the behest of powerful European countries, notably United Kingdom, France, and as well as the United States of America. It was the UN, by virtue of Resolution 181 of 1947, that established Israel. And this creation of Israel was on the basis, on the condition that it must stay within the boundaries earmarked by the UN in that resolution, and that they must live alongside the State of Palestine. This is not supposed to be negotiable. Expansion of Israel beyond these boundaries is a flagrant violation of international law and the conditions for the creation of Israel. Remember, all nations, including and especially Israel, that was a creation of the United Nations, all members of the UN, in particular Israel, undertake to abide by the Charter of the UN. And therefore, expansion beyond the boundaries given and approved and established by the UN is a flagrant violation of international law. And then the major cause of insecurity and the major threat to peace and security in the Middle East, if not the entire world. In fact, the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, only recently, that's 19th of July 2024, barely a year ago, gave a judgment to the effect that all the occupation of Israel, of Palestinian territories and other territories in the area of other nations is illegal and a violation both of the Charter and of international law. Therefore, any talk or any notion about peace and security in the region, we have to start with ending the occupation and sticking, as unfair as it was to the Palestinians originally, to the boundaries of the two states as established in Resolution 181 of 1947. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please give a thumbs up, and You may wish to subscribe if you haven't done so, and you may wish to also share and comment. Until next time.